Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag College Show. The championship game is upon us. I am joined, as always, by Alex. Alex, we're at the final. I know we've been off for a couple of weeks. You had it being a Texas Notre Dame final. I had it an Ohio Penn State final, but we are here and it's Ohio State versus Notre Dame.
Yeah, it is. I thought I was clever picking Notre Dame and Texas, whereas Notre Dame came through. Thanks mainly to the defense and some tricky play calling from Marcus Freeman. But I think my Texas pick was more a heart pick than a head pick. I sort of wanted to say.
Went against me.
I couldn't agree with you anyway for Ohio State anyway.
You know, that's one way to get renewed for next season. That is go against my team.
yeah. But I thought they had a shot, and I thought it would have made quite a story if they did manage to knock off Ohio State. It was just like all guns blazing at the moment. And then they were close, though, weren't they? They were knocking right on the door. They had about what felt like about 50 chances to get it in the end zone at the end of that game with all the pass interference calls and that. And then their shot literally slipped through Quinn Ewer's fingers, and he watched his former roommate, Jack Sawyer, dashing down the sideline to put that nail in the coffin and send Ohio State to the Natty. So
yeah, and take a little bit of pressure off of Ryan Day as well, which is what we like as well.
Maybe a little bit. Do you think, though? Do you think his job is completely safe if he does not bring home the title?
Yeah, I think getting to the final secures his job for another season. I can't. How can you say from where we were? We lost 2 games. Yeah, we haven't beat Michigan, but to get to the final, I know winning it all is kind of like the expectation when your team's that strong and you've spent that much money and you brought in all those people. Then a title is what you want. But to get to the final, I think that's you've completed your objective. Anyone can lose that one-off game, can't they, on the day? So it's tough to be fired if you got to the final, I think.
It's tough, but crazier things have happened.
What's your thoughts? Do you think there's any chance that he'll get fired or they'll move on? Or?
Realistically, probably not.
Who are you going to get that's better?
Do
you think they draw one of the other guys?
Pull Nick Saban out of retirement.
Urban Meyer? I don't
know. There's not really many other coaches there's not going to be any available that are better than.
I think to beat Oregon and Texas on the way to the final as well shows that he can beat the bigger teams, which has somewhat been his downfall sometimes, that he couldn't get over the line against the stronger teams. So maybe that plays in his favor as well. But we'll start off by talking about the playoffs themselves. We'll talk about what's worked, how your thoughts on it. So to start off with, do you feel like the 12-team playoff was a success?
I've enjoyed it. I think it's been quite fun. I know, especially the first round, there's quite a lot of one-sided games, and a lot of people arguing that maybe the way it was seeded and worked out wasn't the best way to get the strongest matchups, and it probably wasn't. But it still gave the smaller teams a chance, gave them a bit of a stage on the national spotlight, and it's culminated in a fairly unpredictable finish, because I had Oregon going all the way to the top. I thought initially, obviously your Buckeyes had other ideas, but it just shows that once you get into tournament football and the bigger tournament, then things can completely turn on their head. So Ohio State have flipped from that loss to Michigan to becoming an absolute powerhouse, knocking off Tennessee, Oregon, and Texas, what they beat last week then. But yeah, and some surprises as well. I mean, you could argue that the 2 teams with the bye in the first round, Boise State and Arizona State, didn't deserve their places as much as some other teams, maybe. But then they weren't completely trans. Boise State weren't the strongest, but Arizona State actually probably turned up and made probably the best game out of the playoffs so far against Texas in that one. So it probably could do with some tweaking, or they could just leave it how it is and see how it runs out for the next couple of years until they add 2 more teams to make it 14, make it even more complicated.
Well, I quite like the idea of it being 14 because then you only get 2 buys, don't you?
Yeah.
You get the 1 and the 2 seed, which I think if that was this season would have made it a lot better. I think when you look at it and you go, well, round 1, all of the favourites won easy. Then round 2, all of the top 4 seeded teams all got knocked out. So there's something not quite right there with the seedings and the structure and reseeding and things like that, because you shouldn't have blowout wins in the first round and then all of your top seeds going out the second round. That doesn't seem quite right to me.
No, and it's sort of in a way devalued the value of a conference championship as well, because there's no conference championship champions in the Final Four, were there?
Mm-hmm.
No, and no teams that played in a championship game in the Final Four. Is that right?
Well, no, because the championship games would have been the 4 that got through, wouldn't it? So Oregon won theirs and Georgia won theirs. That's how they got through. So,
but in the semis, it was Texas and Ohio State.
Yeah,
and they played in a
there was none in the final.
Yeah, sorry, Texas lost. Texas did, and they lost to Georgia. So I got that incorrect. So there's no championship winner in the semifinals. And obviously Notre Dame Independent and Penn State, they did play in theirs, and they lost to Oregon. Okay, so you don't have to win your conference to get.
No, yeah, I think for me as well. I don't know about you, but expanding it, having a team like Ohio that would have missed out on the old format. Mm-hmm. I think coming into this playoffs, they have shown that they are probably the best team in college football at the moment, and you wouldn't have seen them in that if it wasn't for this expansion. And I think that's what's good about this. I think we might have been disappointed by the 4-team format that was previous, but by the teams that might have qualified for it might not have been exciting as what we've had this year with the expanded.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's more scope for a team to get hot in the postseason, like just your Giants might then, like was it 2011 when the Giants won the Super Bowl with not the best regular season record, but then flew through the playoffs.
I think the last 2 times that the Giants won the playoffs, they've won it through being the wild card and getting hot in the playoffs. It just seems to be the way they do it. Also, come on, you throw me off talking about the Giants. One of my other teams.
wrong kind of football.
You have completely lost my question. I'm going to have to move on. I'm going to have to talk about something else now. So, with the seedings, we said before, we analysed it and looked at it and read it before we went into this, and we said that Oregon's path was the hardest, and the 4 of the hardest teams were all on that side of the draw, and there wasn't many on the other side of the draw. Do you feel like reseeding is a must? I know that you mentioned that there's a committee going to go and have a chat about it and change some of the rules, but do you think this is a must?
A must, maybe not, but to make it, I think, fairer in terms of what the teams have achieved in the regular season. So Oregon, their reward for being undefeated in the regular season was a pretty tough matchup against Ohio State, and potentially a really tough run into the championship game if they made it that way. Whereas you get Penn State, who are the runners-up in their championship game with Oregon, and they got what was closest to a cupcake walk into the into the final if they'd managed to knock off Notre Dame when they played SMU and Boise State. So, it does seem a bit unfair that if you're a runner-up or a non-conference champion, that you get somehow it works out so you get the lower-ranked team. So maybe once the first round complete, when we see who's made it into the into the quarterfinals, and maybe stick the balls back in the pot and put them out again. So it's the top ranked against the lowest ranked, and then the middle teams play each other. So it's just might make it a bit more balanced that way, and maybe produce a few more closer matchups. Well, an easier run for the top teams and some closer games in the middle, maybe.
I think you've got to make sure that each side of the bracket has strong teams on it, because I do feel there was no strong team whatsoever on Notre Dame's side of the bracket. So I even thought Georgia were very poor during the season at times, and didn't have faith in them in that game against Notre Dame either going into it. So I do think they need to look at that as well, not have a one loaded side of the bracket if they are doing that. We'll move on from the playoffs and the chat. But is there any more changes you would have made to make it better, or any other little things you picked up along the way, or is
not really? I'll tell you. No, actually, the only thing I think could be improved is I think, obviously the first round had home games for the higher ranked teams, and I think the next round also should have had, for the conference champions, should have earned themselves a home game, both for that home field advantage and the experience for their fans. You win a championship, you think you've earned that, to have play on your own field, which again might mean they have to move some of the bowls out, but those bowls, if they're not in part of the playoff setup, they were still getting quite a lot of coverage this year. There's quite a lot of attention on the bowl games outside of the college, outside of the playoff, and I think that surprised quite a few people as well, because they thought actually people were only going to want to watch the playoff games because those are the ones that matter. But there's some big TV ratings on some ones, like couldn't stop seeing stuff like the Pop-Tarts Bowl and all the other bowls and things like that. So
I suppose once you know your team's not in the playoffs, I suppose it's always been quite it's a holiday thing, is it, with these bowl games, that people are going to go with the families, watch them, their teams, and lots of them have been playing for these bowls rather than championship, because they know they can't make it that far when it was a 14 playoff. So I think there is still that nostalgia with those bowl games, and that's probably why the ratings were quite good on watching them outside of the actual playoff games.
Yeah, and it just gives you, because I think they spread them out a bit better, didn't they, this year with the dates and that, so there's a more consistent football on most days, or a bowl game.
They started them on like Tuesday and all the way through.
And so people were watching them in anticipation maybe of the playoff kicking off. But yeah, it's been good. I think that the only other thing I might change is just go back to, for a traditional thing, is maybe make the championship in the Rose Bowl rather than a quarter or semi-final game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's prestigious, isn't it? That would be.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not saying, because it's in Atlanta this year, the championship game, and they've already played one of the games in Atlanta as well. That was the Texas-Arizona State game, wasn't it? Was that Atlanta? I think it was. But yeah, maybe like one of the big traditional bowls, like the Rose Bowl. That's about as college football as you can get in it.
It is, yeah. Well, we'll move on to the big game. It's, as we said, Ohio State versus Notre Dame. Ohio State is an 8-point favorite. Ohio State, as we said, beat Texas to get here, beating them 28-14. And Notre Dame got here by beating Penn State 27-24. Before we talk about the game, we've spoke a bit about Ryan Day, and we spoke about his security with his job and what it means getting into this game. Let's talk about the other guy on the other side, Marcus Freeman. Done an absolutely sensational job with this Notre Dame team. People wrote him off after that loss to Northern Illinois, was it? They lost to at the start of the year. But then he's bounced back, won all his games, won well, and proved all the haters wrong in the playoffs too. Lots of talk about him going to the NFL this year and potentially going to the Chicago Bears. Do you think he's ready to make that move? Do you think it's a wise move for him to move to the NFL? Do you think he'll stick with Notre Dame for another year? What's your thoughts on this?
As much as I would like to see him be the Chicago Bears head coach, because I really like him as a coach, and I'm obviously a Bears fan. I'm not sure it's the best idea. I mean, his contract he's got is still he signed for like an 8-year contract with Notre Dame, and in a way, I think it would be a shame for him to leave now and not continue what he's building there at the moment, because that team, he's got that team fully behind him, and they're completely in lockstep, and you can see that they're playing for him and with him, and it's just quite exciting to see what he does. His play calling, his decision making in the game has been really interesting to watch. He's not afraid to bust out a crazy trick play like in the semi when he switched out the entire special teams. But yeah, I would probably prefer to see him stick around with the Irish and just keep that momentum going, keep that that ethos that he's built in that team, and just go ahead with that.
I was asked the question earlier in the week, and I said exactly the same. I said, I think he's brilliant. I think he's a great coach. I think he will, in the future, become an NFL head coach. But for me, I still think he needs a few more years. He's very young to manifest what he's doing and grow it and prove what he can do over a stretch of time rather than in one season. I know, obviously, he was good as a coordinator at Purdue. Was it Purdue's prior? No. Yeah, no.
Was it Purdue before? Because he was the DC at Notre Dame and then got stepped up when Brian Kelly left, didn't he? So yeah, but he's proved his chops at that level. But yeah, is that
also an Ohio State boy, isn't he? But I think he was linebacker at Ohio State, so you know.
Yeah, well, he's not gonna let that in this game, I don't think. Yeah.
But here we are. As I said, 8-point favourites Ohio State. That's a big number for a championship game. I think usually when you, especially with a 12-team playoff, I think when you whittle it down to the two best, I thought it'd be a lot closer. But I do think Ohio State are the stronger team. I think they've got the stronger offense, the stronger defense, and they've got the experience of being here doing it most years. What's your initial take on the game without going too in depth with it? When you saw it, did you think Ohio State easy, or do you think this is going to be a close battle?
I think it's going to be, I normally get this wrong, but I think it's going to be slightly closer than the 8-point spread that they're suggesting. I think it's going to come down to coaching at some level, and I think Marcus Freeman is going to absolutely scheme it up as best as he can to slow down this offense. I mean, he's got the Notre Dame secondary played very well in the semi-final game, and they're going to have to play absolutely lights out to contain the likes of Jeremiah Smith and things like that. But if they can somehow shut him down and then make the big plays, because it was the defense that made the crucial plays in the last game, and if they can just get one or two of those big plays that result in a stoppage or a turnover, then they might be able to stay in step with them, because like I said, the offense is nowhere near as strong as Ohio State's, so they're going to have to win it another way, I think.
Yeah, I'm struggling to grasp how they're going to win this. I think when you look at it in terms of points scored, I think they're going to have to get this game into a bit of an in the trenches, bit of a dirty sort of fight with them, and almost play it like it was when Ohio played Michigan. You know, force them to the run game, beat them in the trenches, keep it close, and then maybe get something at the end. I see that's the only way Notre Dame are going to win this. I think if it goes to a shootout and it's punch for punch in scoring, I think Ohio State will take them to the races and win this quite comfortably if that's the case. Ohio State have already, they went up against Texas in the previous one, who I believe have probably got one of the best secondaries in football. They've definitely got the best cornerback at the moment, well, bar Will Johnson, but in the game, plus Makuba as well at safety. And they schemed up a play to try and shut down Jeremiah Smith, just like you said. These guys need to do. They had 3 people on him, but you've got to remember, Emeka Egbuka last year was touted to be a first-round pick. This year is touted to be a first-round pick. You can't shy away from the fact that he's better than most people's number 1 wide receivers on their teams. He's better than any wide receiver on the Notre Dame team. And then they've also got Carnell Tate as well, who's a great youngster coming through that looks like, again, he could be the number 1 receiver on this Notre Dame team. So if they do contain Smith, what do you do about Egbuka and Tate and Henderson and Judkins? I feel like, what is the points that Notre Dame are going to have to hold Ohio to win this game? What do you think? It's 20 points, 25, less? How many points do you think they can realistically give up?
As few as possible, but yeah, anything much more than 20, and they're really going to be struggling, I think.
Well, only one team this season has held Ohio to less than 20 points, and that was the Michigan game. They're the only team this season that's held them to less than 20 points. The only other team that's held them to 20 was Penn State. So, yeah, I just feel like this it's going to be tough for them. They're going to have to try and keep it in the trenches. And I feel like
you have to beat them up front, absolutely.
I feel like we touched on this a little bit when we were talking about the playoffs, about you can now look at the playoffs, the whole season differently, knowing the fact that you can lose a couple in the season. So I now think that you need to play seasonal football and then playoff football and have them separate. It used to be you had to win every single game, otherwise you weren't in. And I feel like Ohio have done that. They've played different teams different ways, and they've tried different things throughout the season. It cost them a loss when they tried to just use the run game and not use the pass at all against Michigan. I think they did that against Nebraska as well, when they were moving the O-line round and seeing if they could develop a run game with the new O-line format. And I feel like they've tried things like that, but all in all, their main focus is throwing the ball early, getting it out to those dangerous wide receivers, and then introducing the run game with Judkins and Henderson. And Notre Dame have lost Benjamin Morrison, so that's going to be really, really tough for them. We've got Watts still in that secondary, but yeah, they're going to have to try and stop the pass early to win this one, I think.
Yeah, because if Ohio State jump out to the lead like they did against Texas, because that is the problem with Ohio State. They really have the capacity to score fast and just hit them with a big chunk play, like after was it still in the first quarter of the semi-final when Texas drew level and they thought, all right, we're back in this game, and the next play, next drive, yeah, that's it, 75-yard touchdown or whatever it was. So yeah, they have to contain those big plays, those explosive plays, which they're going to find difficult. But if they can just keep a bit of a lid on that and just slow them down, it might even come down to just controlling the ball, controlling the clock, that time of possession sort of thing. If they can play that sort of possessional football, then maybe. You never know, though. Riley Leonard might absolutely go off. He's dangerous on the ground. He's a bit dangerous in the air if he's not throwing a couple of picks. But yeah, you never know. You never know what's going to happen.
Well, I've spoke about how I think Ohio State are going to win this and how they can win it. You think it's going to be a closer game. What do you think that Notre Dame need to do offensively to beat this very, very talented first rounders all over the field defense that Ohio have got?
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to their ground game. If the O-line can hold its own enough to get some big gaps going, if they can get Jeremiah Love having a big game, if they can make space for Riley Leonard to use his legs, because he showed how dangerous he can be. I think he's willing to put himself on the line for some big plays, maybe take some big hits. But yeah, If that doesn't work, just bring back in Angeli for a drive or two to mix it up a bit, because but I don't know. I think that they're going to struggle through the air. I think the Ohio State secondary is probably going to have them locked down. So it's going to come down to the trenches and the run game, I think. If they can get anything going with that, then they may have a bit of a chance. But
Yeah,
I think when I thinking about it more and more, and I say this is going to be a close game. Again, that's more of my heart talking than my head, because I want it to be a close game to watch as a neutral. But yeah, it's one of the games that could probably quite easily run away from them.
I think from watching the way that Texas and Sarkisian had to change the way that he called the play, I think you're right in saying that they need to get Love involved and Williams involved as well. Obviously, Riley Leonard's going to run, but you know the way they get Love involved. I think Texas, when they couldn't get anything going on the ground, they tried to get their running backs involved in little dump offs and throwing it to them outside, because they knew that Sawyer and Tulimo were flying at them from the edges, that there might be room that while they were coming in to pass it over them to the running backs. So I think they have to get these running backs involved in the passing game early.
Yeah, because that worked for Texas, because Blue scored the touchdowns early on, didn't he? So yeah, I think Notre Dame have to utilise whoever they can in the passing game, whether it's the running backs or tight ends or whoever. But
so we're both in agreement that it's going to have to come from maybe some of the running backs. We don't think that the passing game is going to be great for them. If that's the case, we've talked about how many points they've got to hold Ohio to. How many points, if they're realistically making these drives that are going to be slow drives, they're going to be a lot of run plays, how many points do you think Notre Dame need to put on the board offensively to win this game?
Well, I don't know, at least one more than Ohio State. Again, well, it all depends on how much they can slow them down. It's going to have to be a lot. It's going to probably have to be one of their highest scoring games. Definitely of the playoff campaign. You'd want them scoring above 20. If they can push for 30, then I can't see them scoring 30 though.
Yeah, you wanted to push for 30, and Tennessee got 17, Oregon got 21, Texas got 14. I mean, Oregon,
I know.
one of the best offenses.
That was enough in each of those games, because Freeman's going to scheme it up so well that it's going to finish 21 to 20.
Oh,
because it's not, but but I can imagine that with the way that it's been going for Notre Dame this postseason, then I could just imagine that. I could see that sort of happening. Maybe sort of if everything falls their way.
I think that angle is the correct way to go about it. If they do the things that we've said, if they get the running backs involved in the passing game, if they try and shut down Ohio State's pass early and force them to get into a shootout with the run game, like Michigan did, and try and force them that way, because Notre Dame's defense is very, very good. Then I do think you're right. I think it's going to be a 20-23 game. And if it is close towards the end, I can see Notre Dame nicking it in a close shootout. But I personally can't see that happening. I mean, hindsight of us saying that, this is what they need to do, and if they do it, it'll work. I just think Ohio's offense is just too dynamic, and once they get rolling, you just can't stop them, and that defense is clicking for me, and they've just found a way to make it work in the playoffs. So I see this game personally being maybe 30-17 in Ohio's favor. So I see them covering the -8 as well, and winning this one quite comfortably.
Okay.
What's your final? Is your final score prediction 21-20?
21-20 to know that it's completely like batshit crazy. But I think I'm just going back to a quote from Marcus Freeman after the last game, when he said, we found a way to make a play when it mattered the most. And in my opinion, great teams, great programs find a way to do that. So I think he's going to find a way to make some crazy play. Where there's going to be one or two pivotal moments that just swing it. And even though I don't really truly believe it, if I'm being logical and sensible, but yeah, I'll go just for the sake of fun. I'll go for Notre Dame 21-20 over your Buckeyes.
I'm guessing you're saying that your key player is Jeremiah Love. I'm guessing for Notre Dame.
Yeah, and probably like the entire special teams unit to do something crazy. I reckon they'll get a turnover on a punt return or something, and then I think it's going to come down to the defense as well. I think the defense is going to step up and get one turnover at a crucial time, and it's just going to.
Well, we'll talk about that defense a little bit more before we go. I've noticed that Notre Dame like to do man coverage. If they do go that way, then they might struggle a little bit going man for man against the wide receivers. Texas, we saw play it very, very differently. Like we said, they had 3 marking Smith. Do you feel like they should change the way Freeman should change the way that he has been playing with this man coverage, and take a look at what Texas did? I think Michigan did the same as well. They're the two teams that have managed to shut them down a little bit. Or do you think he should go with his own game plan and stick to what's worked for him all season?
I don't know. I think he'll probably study what other teams have done that have slowed down that offense. So like the Michigan game and Texas. So yeah, he might switch it up a bit, and I think he probably should, because it is. If they run mainly man coverage, can be dangerous because if they got one defender that gets beat, that could leave them exposed and wide open for one of these big explosive plays that they can't afford to let Ohio State get. So yeah, they may have to drop off a bit there, or switch into more of his own game. But I don't know. I'm sure he's got plans and schemes and ways, and they're probably going to concede 40 points.
But I reckon there's going to be big games for Henderson and Smith this game. I think they are going to step up and do some big things in this game. And like I said, that's not even talking about Judkins and Mika Egbuka either. So yeah, those two I think are going to excel in this one and bring it home. So we're going to win the trophy. Ryan Day's going to keep his job. Everyone's happy, and I think we're in good stead for next year as well. Obviously, we're still going to have Jeremiah Smith. We're still going to have Caleb Downs. We're going to have Julian Salin at quarterback. So it's not over for us next year. We can roll the dice again. There's going to be loads of the Notre Dame team going into the NFL next year. They're going to lose quite a few of their players. What's their expectation for next year for Notre Dame? Do you think it's repeat, or do you think it is just get to the playoffs? What's your expectation from them after they lose a lot of players?
I don't know. I think it's gonna Notre Dame should be quite an attractive proposal for recruits coming in. I guess the expectation is just keep that momentum going. A playoff place, yes. I think more ideally to reach a championship game again. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see and demonstrate for Freeman how he can work with the upheaval and the turnover of the roster after so many players will leave for the draft. So yeah, it's always hard to tell in college football, but I think the expectation will at least be a playoff berth, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think you're right in what you're saying there, with it being an attractive place for transfers or recruits to go to. Obviously, they don't need to win a championship game to get there. I think you're now starting to see a shift in a lot of the northern teams becoming more popular destinations than the southern teams like the SEC schools, because I think the schools' education are slightly better as well. So if you're going there and you're not going to go into the NFL, then your education's good as well. So I think you might see a shift in.
Well, I think you will, so, yeah.
In some of those teams being better in the future than maybe some of the SEC schools that are going to struggle to draw people in now, I think.
Yeah, SEC's dead now. Big Ten's where it's at. Yeah, SEC's been exposed. No, I think there'll always be a big draw, the teams in the SEC, but I think maybe a little bit the consensus of where the strong leagues are, where the strong teams
where the money is, isn't it?
A bit, and well, it's where all the money is and where all the networks have invested in as well. But yeah, I think there's a gradual sort of shifting of power towards the Big Ten. So, and the Big 12's a fun league as well. But maybe not as
well. Fun league is the correct term, I think, for it.
Yeah.
Just before we go, any thoughts on the draft itself? Have you done much? Have you shifted from the playoffs and the NCAA regular season into who's going into the draft and what players you like the look of going into it? Or you where are you at with it?
I've not quite got into that headspace yet. Once the national championships over, then I'll start looking more at that. But yeah, and then all I'll be interested in is offensive lineman. I think as a Bears fan, draft every good lineman going. Yeah.
Is there anyone that you would like the Bears to draft offensive line wise? Is there a name of
there is, and I've completely forgotten his name. It's the LSU.
You want Will Campbell?
Will Campbell, that's it. Yeah.
What do you like about? Do you like the fact that he can play tackle, guard? Adam even said you could move him to center. But I think if you could play him left tackle, left guard, and it'd be brilliant. So it's something you need as well. So.
I know. I mean, Bears got a fairly decent left tackle in Darnell, right? No, he's right tackle. He's left tackle. But yeah, anything just to improve that O-line. But he's shown he's a player that can dominate in probably in any position along that line. He seems to have quite a strong and confident mindset, and I think that his physicality, as well as his intangibles and that the way he carries himself, I think would be one of those players that will translate quite well to the pro game. So yeah. If he pops up as our draft pick, then I'll be happy with that.
A lot of the things that you read and see from him as well is he reads the game really well and he calls the plays for the O-line once he sees the field. So I think that's going to literally propel his draft capital. Maybe he's going up against Calvin Banks, isn't he? To be which one of them is going to be the number one offensive lineman off the board. So if he lands at the Bears, he'll be the perfect pick, I think, because you can use him anywhere on that line, and it'll be a help to you. So I think that. One more before you go: Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, first quarterback off the board?
Who I would prefer, or who I think's going first?
Who you think?
Who's got the first pick? It's Titans. And then who's second? Where are the Giants?
3.
Oh, they all need quarterbacks. Well, we know that Shedeur is all going to turn on its head when Deion Sanders takes the Cowboys head coach job when he brings in Shedeur there.
Yeah, Dak gets traded to the Titans. They take on 104 million dead cap, and Shedeur is at the Cowboys with the first pick.
Yeah, and then Cam Ward goes to the Browns, unfortunately for him. I would probably take Ward over Sanders. I know you're big on Shedeur Sanders. Oh, would I then? Yeah, I think I would.
I like them both.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong. Those two are the two.
They are the two. There's been a bit of buzz around Jackson Dart's draft stock rising up, isn't there? Is that who you'd like to see pop up at the Giants?
Well, from the start of the season through the first few games, and then when the Giants were half decent and our draft was going to be sort of 9th, 10th, 11th pick, I was saying, look, we need to take an O-lineman with the first pick, take Jackson Dart in the second round. He's the one I want. He's going to be great. It was Jackson Dart and Garrett Nussmeier, I was like, yeah, we can get one of those two later.
Yeah.
I've been a big fan of Jackson Dart for his whole time at Ole Miss. And I think the hype's only going to get bigger and bigger for him. So there's a possibility that the Giants may take him at 3, and we'll see his hype fly up. Like it's being talked about, like Jaden Daniels. I mean, he's not had like the season and the same style of quarterback as Daniels, but there's talk about the hype being that real. So I would have liked to have taken him in the 2nd round, but I don't think they're going to be able to do that. We might have to trade down, pick something else, and then trade up again from the 2nd, and maybe take him later in the 1st. But I'd be happy if we took Jackson Dart, another Ole Miss quarterback. He's beat all of Eli Manning's records, so I would be happy with that.
There we go.
Well, that's all we've got time for. The game, as we said, is on. Did we say is on Monday? Bit of an odd one. Will you be staying up for it, because it'll be early hours of the morning on Tuesday for us? Bit annoying that it's on a Monday. I understand they didn't want it to clash with the NFL games, but is Monday the right time to have it?
Not if you're watching in the UK, because you've got to go work the next day. But yeah, I mean, it gives it its own bit of uniqueness playing on the Monday night. But the realisticness and logistics of watching it on a weekday night is just tricky. But I will probably try and stay up and watch as much as I can.
I will be saying that. I think the ratings for it will be better with it being on a Monday than it being on the Saturday. So I think it's a good move for the NCAA to do that rather than stick with the Saturday. So I think that's a good decision. But good luck to both teams if your team's in it as well. And we will be back again very soon. We will get you on a show, get looking at draft stuff. We'll get you on one of our draft shows with me and Adam when we're talking about the players. You come and do a mock draft with us, or you can come and debunk ours and say where we've gone wrong or right, and add some of those players that you've seen play against USC all year. So, yeah, we'll get you on for that. Keep an eye out for Alex's articles. I'm sure you've got more coming out soon.
Keep it up. I'll have a recap of the championship game on the Gridiron Magazine website.
Brilliant.
The game.
Yep.
So you can keep your eyes peeled for that.
We'll get that reposted on the franchise tag as well. But till then, keep it with the franchise tag and see you again very soon.